So tell me, ask me,
Yeah.
milk me.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna begin now with like, could you briefly explain your role? Sorry, I'm
It's
like,
a very common question that people don't really know, and
yeah,
it also I find it differs also, at least in the working field. It differs very much, whatever your situation is, if you are a freelancer or if you are on a regular contract. It has all to do with responsibility you are as a dramaturg, I find. I'm not Mr. General speaking or whatever, but I think that you have a responsibility towards the director and his production, and you also responsibility to an organization. You have a sort of an intermediary role, and in the case of Waiting for the Barbarians, and what I do, it is, I always, in the beginning, when I was asked this question, always I said, well, you are working with the director, so you are researching a lot. Dramaturgy is a question of research. And what's the basis of a piece? What's the text? What's the music? Where does it come from? Where is it situated? And so on. And with that, you meet with the director and you discuss it, what you want to do, and also, very important, why do you want to do it? That is, for me, a main question also. Why do we do these things? I always try, in this case I haven't done it, but I always tried to help a director with giving or providing additional material. I haven't done that here with Waiting for the Barbarians. And that was the work with the director and the house was the main core. The other thing is I do a lot of writing, also doing program books, doing readings, giving introductions and all that. And that is also quite an important, it is all with the purpose that there will be people to look at it. That is, I find, very important. And maybe there I'm not only a link between the director and an organization, but I'm also a link between the product, I should say, and the public. I find that very important. Doing it for people.
So your role as dramaturg is largely as someone who translates between a piece of art and how it's perceived by someone else.
Yeah, that's right. It's a link, it's an intermediary role between a product and someone who goes for the product. It's not on the forefront, it's not that, the dramaturg did this and that and so on. You very hardly ever read that in a review.
Whilst working on Waiting for the Barbarians, what stood out to you as a core theme or tension within the story, or something that really stood out to you in your role as dramaturg?
Well, let's first talk maybe about the piece itself in a way. I think it is also a task for a dramaturg, or something very important, that we are busy with new pieces, with modern pieces, because art is something that constantly renews itself or has to renew itself. I mean, the title says Waiting for the Barbarians. We have to ask ourselves, who are the barbarians? That is so cleverly done, also in the music, very cleverly done, that you never have a really clear answer where you can adjust a judgment to the one side or to the other side. It is quite clear who they are and how they come and how they present themselves and what they do. It's only about these military people trying to fight a group of people who we never get to know. It's not a question of guilt, it's more the question of what have they done good or what have they done bad. And that is the whole thing. And I think also that the music of Philip Glass, with this repetitive pattern, very well fits, because it doesn't really only give one person a very moving aria, a very personal things, and there is a military chorus or whatever. It is always the same, and you have nuances, of course, and you have things increasing or declining and so on. So to understand that and understand that pattern brought me personally also even closer to Philip Glass and his music than it ever did. So that is something that is very common for me. I have experienced it in the past very often, that I get very close to pieces I am really working on. I mean, people ask me very often, never asked me in the past quite often, what's your favorite opera? I don't know. Most of the time, it's the piece I'm working on at the moment. So now as I have to deal with it and I will work with it and try to understand the music and so on and find a connection with the music and the actual things that are happening, the music is much closer to me. It helps. It helped me also. Last year I was working, don't do it very often, I was working on a ballet and with the choreographer, and we had decided that we would use music by Philip Glass for the first time. It was a mythological story, quite trying to tell the myth of Prometheus. And I was really creating, together with the choreographer, we were creating the storyline, because we had thought that this is a good subject, but there was not a book or a score or a line where it says, here he comes around the corner and there he does this and there he does that and so on. So we created the plot, and we used, for the first half, we used only Philip Glass music. And that helped me also enormously, because I had this kind of repetitive music always in my mind. Questions?
How important do you think that this choice of presenting this ambiguity between the civilized and the barbarian that you said was also built into the way Philip Glass's music was around this opera? How important do you think that choice was to the core story of Waiting for the Barbarians?
Well, there one would have to talk with Py3. I haven't done that. He was he did a lecture here not so long ago, I think. But because it is in the novel also, that it is not really clear who's good and who is bad and who's coming when and so on. But it is very much for me something that fits our time today, that we, you, me, spectators and so on, we should not be too early with our decisions or with adjusting judgments to someone and say he is good or he is bad. Wait a second, let's think. Of course, in a theater play or in an opera, you have to have good guys and you have to have bad guys in order to create a tension and create a storyline and so on. And that's the same case here, like you have, especially with the men, the three main characters. You have people where you can say they are good and they are worse, or they are bad. I mean, the main character, the magistrate, he's not really he is a good character. He seems to be a good guy, but he's not only a positive character. He has not only always only done good things. He has done difficult things, but he tries to be able to negotiate with who is what, and he is so he has his sexual ambitions or sexual needs and his living needs and so on. So they all come through. And are they good or are they bad? It's not. in this piece, especially not for us to judge that. And I'm very, very curious also how Guy Weizmann will handle that there also. I mean, how do we see it? We did one which is also interesting, and it was one of the first discussions I had with Guy Weizmann when we talked about the three main characters, the Mandel, the Doll character, and Mandel, Doll, and the magistrate. They are all low male voices. And I said to Guy, this is very monotone. Do you say that? Can you say that? Mm-hmm. It is very much of the same. Can we not create a contrast? And we were thinking, and so we came up that we asked at first Philip Glass, would you consider to change one of those low male voices into a female voice? Not a female voice in the sense of making a woman out of him, but having the character. And funny enough, not funny enough, but surprisingly enough, Philip Glass agreed right away when we said that. And so I think now with these three characters, where one will probably, we don't know yet really, be also the female singer will also be a man. It creates another kind of relation, another kind of tension, and also opens up the fact that you just say low male voices are always bad. Because if you look into the tradition or in the history of opera, the bad guys most of the time are the guys with the bass or baritone voices. So, and we have now a mezzo-soprano, and also it will open up the fact it will be ambiguous. It will be more ambiguous than it was before. And so it opens up the way of looking at people and thinking about people. And that was, I think, a big, big step without changing the notes and without changing really the singing line and so on. So that's it was a very, I think, a very brave stuff. I'm very curious how Glass, I guess he will come. I'm not sure because he's quite old now, how he will react on it. But he said, tell me if there are problems and if I should change something. I mean, he wants to be involved, and usually composers do not want to change very much. I mean, there are these kind of people and other kinds of people, but yeah, the thing that is done is done. So, but he was very open and said, send me what is the problem and so on. So that was really great. So we open up and make it even maybe more ambiguous than the piece itself already is. And I think that is why I feel that this opera is something that can speak to us very much, because it does a request towards our brains, to our ways of thinking and so on. So that I think is the best advantage also. I mean, the magistrate character, it's in two parts, the opera, and in the first half, the magistrate is a relatively positive and open character who is in command of that situation there in that fort where it mainly plays. And in the second half, he becomes more of a victim of the other more hardcore military guys. And so his positive attitude, which we always will feel, and maybe we even think in the second half more positive about him, but it is not as present, and he is more an oppressed character.
So we are kind of like approaching the opera through like post-colonial theory and social psychology, like using othering, dehumanization, and intergroup bias. Does this resonate with how dramaturgs think about audience reception as well?
Well, I saw that you were asking. I think, of course, as I said before, I think all these pieces are written for an audience. So we want them in whichever way, yeah, that can be discussed, but in whichever way to understand and do something with it for themselves, getting to know it, it sounds terrible what I now say, but it is, yeah, maybe we do these jobs for an audience to understand more, to become a better person, or, yeah. I think, I mean, nowadays with the political situation in Europe as it is, yeah, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, although there one has to be extra careful. But I just wonder all the time, did Mr. Putin not read Greek mythology? Because there, everything is there, you know? I mean, I worked once on a show that's the Trojans, Les Troyens, by a French composer also, where it is about war between parties, and at the very end, the main character, Aeneas, goes off and creates probably, or is the reason for a new war. So what I want to say is, we all have said it these days, these last couple of months. It's all the same. History repeats itself. The Mandels, I don't know what Guy does with it, but the Mandels and the Jolls of the history have not understood, apparently. And that is the message already from the guy who wrote the novel, yeah? And we must be careful that, because you talked about bias, not to judge too early, but it is up to us to bring people closer to what we are showing and make them understand. That is, in my opinion, also what art in all its facets is there for. Yeah, why we read novels, why we read theater plays, why we go to the theater, because it is a mirror held in front of us to understand what has happened and how people have behaved.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
really what I think. That's also something that drives me in my work, because I do this work for such a long time now. But yeah, and you find new pieces. Like I said, Waiting for the Barbarian for me is, except that I saw it the very first time, it is something new for me, and it helps me to either judge or understand also how we should behave, how we should accept another, I'd say, people from another ethnicity or whatever, not judge beforehand. Let this come. And of course, Philip Glass and could say it is a subjective way of putting it. And also this subjectiveness you have to understand. But this is then what you as a dramaturg also have to discuss with the director. What does he want to show? And it is one thing. Maybe the next one, who is not Guy Weitzman, does Waiting for the Barbarians in a totally different way, which can also be right, where you also can understand. Amen.